All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to Talkin Investing. Hello, I am Tom. Hello, George.
I am George. Hello, everybody.
Well, the good news is Bitcoin had a big pump today. So Bitcoin was green. All the Bitcoin miners were green. Pretty much all things crypto were green. Obviously, there's always some exceptions out there. But this was a very strong Friday. I want to show you a couple of charts that I think, I hate to say this, but I'm going to put a case together for potentially that this was a breakout. I mean, obviously, it was a big up day, so you could, it's to some extent, you could say that's self-evident, but I'm going to show a few charts that I think show, this is what we were looking for, and we'll see what happens, right? Things go up, things go down. So, no one day do I like to overreact. In fact, several times lately on the channel, we've talked about the fact that the markets had massive overreactions. One of the things we got today was, Jerome Powell spoke. So we usually get big moves on those days. Today actually was a big move to the upside. More often than not, for the last 2.5 years, when Jerome Powell speaks, there's red in our immediate future. But I will say, caution, beware. A lot of times these are one-day, one-off events. I'm going to show you why I think this might be a continuation of a trend that we were already in the middle of, but only time will tell. What are your thoughts, George? Anything?
I haven't really paid attention too much, Tommy. I ain't gonna lie, but I did watch some of the man speak at the hole.
All right. Well, I got a 10-second clip that I'm going to show that I think really says it all. It's what the market was waiting for. I will take this opportunity. If everybody could please do us a great big favor. We're at 20 likes. We're going for 100 likes. If you could smash the like button, it would help the stream out a lot in real time.
100? We're going for 200, Tom.
We're going for 200. We used to go for, believe it or not, this stream used to get 500 likes pretty much every Friday. And that's how much, we're now 5.5 months into Bitcoin kind of getting beat up a little bit and people losing interest, retail investors losing interest. We've been here every Friday through all the tough days. Today we get a good one. So hopefully, let's smash the like button, get some people to come here and kind of enjoy this good day with us. We'll take them when we get them.
I'm a week for being out. Just, 1 week, this actually total 8 days I've been out of the market.
So, yes, you sold everything 8 days ago in hopes to go your 31 days to take your write-off. So we happen to be getting a pump, but like I said, we'll see. Time will tell, right? Today was a really nice day. Hello, McNally Money, who said, what a crazy week for the miners. Most definitely. So I got a chart of what the miners have done over the last 8 days. And that's one of the things I want to put in to say, I think this is a continuation of what's going on. But obviously, like we always say, be careful. Volatility. This is the land of volatility. Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and the Bitcoin miners, might be the most volatile of them all. So here's one of those days where we did get some stuff in the double digits. A lot of the ones, a lot of the smaller ones in the double digits, which is more common, but some nice move for the big ones. We'll talk about a few kind of lagged behind. The one that lagged behind the most was TeraWulf, but I will tell you that is because they have run so far out ahead of everybody, and this tends to happen. When there's one or two Bitcoin miners that are, just destroying the rest of the field, on a great day, they tend to be the ones that lag. So, it's a little bit of an evening out effect. So I'm not too worried about TeraWulf. I don't own any TeraWulf. I did like their report, not financial advice, but they reported a couple of weeks ago. I thought it was a really nice report. They got rid of all of their debt. And, they had reported some other good things, some good cost per coin. So, there's pluses and minuses. But when we look at the chart of what's going on, TeraWulf has been absolutely on fire, just decimating the field. So yes, they were lagging today, still up 2.5%, but that actually lagged Bitcoin, and it lagged really all. There was one other miner that was less than that. Digital was up 1%. TeraWulf was up 2.5%. From there, There was 5s, 6s, 8s, 9s, 10s. There's some 12, 14. DigiHost was up 16%. So you guys can see on the side here, if you can read this, this is the big board of the Bitcoin miners. There should be the 19 Bitcoin miners plus MicroStrategy plus BlackRock's at the top, up 5.6%. So that really should mirror what Bitcoin did day over day. And this gold line, for those of you new to the channel, we always have a gold line of where Bitcoin was when the U.S. equity markets closed yesterday. So if we do, if we measure that out, that should pretty much be what was the closing candle here today, right here. So there's your 5.55 and IBIT, which is BlackRock's ETF, was up 5.62. So there's your day over day. So that's a huge, 5.5% move day over day. It is a very big move. And it definitely, we got a head fake. This is when Jerome Powell was talking. So immediately they faked us out, or they tried to. So if you got faked out, I'm sorry. But, red candle, red candle, red candle, it looked like, and we had just had, I'll undo this because I'm covering up. We just had a gigantic green candle, and then we gave it all back. But then from there, it was just off to the races the rest of the day. And I was really surprised this kept building momentum, because we were over, if you look at the 15-minute RSI, we got into overbought territory, and now 70, 80 is more overbought, especially on these lower time frames for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. But, we even got up to like 78 in this candle right here. So I thought maybe we would start to, peter out. This is a gigantic line of resistance, what's been resistance and was support at different times. We blew right through this. We blew right through this. This is a much weaker line, just so that you know, but we blew right through that as well. So just big, and all of that, we blew through all of that, when we were at or above 80 on the 15-minute RSI, and it just, it didn't seem to slow it down.
That's great movement. That's a good pump.
Yeah, this is a really, really strong pump. Now, for those of you who trade cryptocurrencies, if you're trading Bitcoin over the weekend, you can do something about this. But, my gut tells me with this, with this short-term gigantic pump, we're going to see a little bit of a pullback from here, would be my guess. But who knows? So, my thought process would be maybe a little bit of sideways activity, maybe a little bit of a pullback over the weekend, but a chance that we continue this bull run next week. I will caution you guys, this isn't the first time I've been optimistic, only to have the rug pulled out from under me. So, let's get a poll going.
What number does it need to get to take out the shorts?
A lot of shorts got taken out in this, between 61 and 62,000. A lot of shorts got liquidated, which was why that's why I thought we would really peter out here. This little range, a lot of shorts got taken out, and, we were overbought. Everything indicated that maybe this was going to be the end. And, we spent hours continuing to go up. Now, the gigantic move somewhere, I can't remember, maybe we'll take a look, 71, 72,000. There's billions and billions of dollars of shorts that would get liquidated somewhere around there. So that is, we'll take a look. That's actually outside of the top of our 5-month trading range based on the pattern that we've been developing.
Yeah,
so that would represent a real breakout. I'm not expecting that.
Every time I do this, Tom, the market takes off.
Well,
just so you guys know, you are welcome.
We did. George talked on the members only live stream, said the same thing. He said, let everybody know that he sold everything. So he already said it in advance. You're welcome. Here comes the bump. And sure enough, in the short term,
68. Ain't that the truth? It is a free. What is the next line of support where we are from here, Tom?
Let's go to the 1 day. Let me get a poll up, and then I'll answer that. We'll go to the 1 day and take a look at some other lines of support and resistance and that kind of stuff.
Man, oh man, some great news out there, though. I sold at the bottom, Harrison. You're right. You're welcome. I'm glad I can help everybody out. That's what I'm here for.
So I'm just going to start with a yes or no, a simple poll. Will Bitcoin continue the run to 68K? And I'm talking about in the next few weeks, imminently. Are we, and so I'll go, I'll answer your question, George, as well as a follow up to this poll as to why I picked that number. This is the 1 day. So let's just take a look. So you'll see for me, and there's a lot of lines of support and resistance that are much, much, much weaker. My next significant one really is at 68 or 69,000 on this 1 day chart. But you can see we broke out. We broke out of this line. I think was fairly significant here, just under 62,000. So I thought that was a strong. You can see how many times recently, if I zoom in on last Thursday, we candlewicked above this, but couldn't get above it. On Friday, we couldn't get above it. We touched this. We almost touched it on Saturday. We touched it on Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, last Wednesday, this Wednesday. This has been, especially in the short term, like we've just been bumping against a brick wall here. And it just felt like we had topped out. But today, obviously, we pushed way through this. And as so often happens, when we break one of these lines, whether it's resistance on the way up or support on the way down, once we confirm a breakthrough, we tend to run from there. So this daily candle, and of course, the daily candle is not closed yet, so we'll see what happens. But it does feel like that's what's going on right now, is that we broke through some resistance. So let me show you the other chart that we're really still. So this is the trading range. This goes back to, we peaked in, somewhere around March 13th, March 14th. We got just under 74,000. And you can see we've been inside of a channel. I will tell you, my green line here is a little bit higher than most other people's that I'm seeing. These are my lines, but, we don't make this up. If you look around, you'll see very similar. Everybody recognizes this pattern. We got a descending wedge pattern here going. And, we've been trading like very nicely inside of this, although my lines are not nice. So, what I've been waiting for and feeling like is that we were consolidating here and potentially, trying to move up to retest the top of this. Every time we've hit the bottom of this range, we've gone back up and retested the top. So, then it'll be, the next question from there is, can we break through? But go ahead, George.
This is the reason I'm out still, by the way. This thing scares me. And if you see those candle wicks below the descending lines, those are the ones that are concerning to me still today.
Yeah, especially this was, that was a big candle wick below. So it recovered. This line held ultimately on the daily candle, but that was a scary wick down. There's no doubt. And this flushed a massive amount of people out of the market right here. It turned out to be a local bottom, but we don't know.
How does it work for crypto and profits, by the way?
What do you mean?
Taxes. Whatever you make, you make. Whatever you lose.
Well, I know
you can't talk about it. Never mind, I won't ask.
Yes, that's right. It's different in every, we have people from all different countries, states, countries, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're looking for tax advice,
I can just tell you that I've been in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, and it's been awesome. I'm hoping that my crypto gains can wash against my Bitcoin miner losses. You see what I'm trying to do there?
Yes.
I don't know if that's going to work out or not, but it would really suck the big one if it didn't.
Well, we're going to see what happens. We've been talking on the channel in the public. We do this every Friday live. For those of you new here, I see a lot of members here and familiar names in the chat. So special thanks to all the members for joining us as always. And hello to everybody else. And thanks to all the subscribers. We've been talking about, can we get back and retest the top of this range? And again, I think there's two totally separate questions. Retesting the top of this range and then breaking out of this range. If we can break out of this range, that is a separate conversation. That would begin, in my opinion, the next move up. Ultimately, to over 100,000. But, you know, that's not even a conversation right now because we're 5.5 months trapped in this range. So there is no sense, you know, in the short term talking about numbers above this. And for me, I'm at around 69,000. Most people have this line closer to 68,000 or 68,500 at the top of this range. So, you know, anywhere between 68 and 69,000 is what we would need to do to test the top of this range. And then from there, we'll have to see if we can break out. I got a couple of, we got a member for 18 months, and then we got, and then Midway, I will get to you. Thank you very much. Old Jock said, never mind the inverse Kramer. We've got George. Just a
inverse George.
Inverse George. Thank you, Old Jock, for being a member for 18 months. Much appreciated. Midway, also a member. Thank you for the super chat, and thank you for being a member. Midway 1 said, and Midway, I will talk about the trade you had talked about on the members only stream, and I did buy some options on that. When we looked at that together, I was excited. It relates to Riot. It's not really playing out quite yet, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, Midway said, people don't know a lot about BitDeer. There are 3 ways to win big from it. A, if they reach 60 plus exahash in 2025. B, they get an AI contract for some of their 2,541 megawatts. C, if they sell lots of their seal miners. Right. So that is a good comment. I don't even talk about the fact that BitDeer rolled out, you know, they rolled out, actually, they have a Bitcoin miner that they make, and they've already released, you know, the release date for 2 big upgrades in efficiency to their Bitcoin miners that they make. So I don't know, you know, these newer miners, not to be confused with the new miner, for those of you who remember that fiasco. Until these are played out and proven, I'm always, I don't want to say skeptical, but, you know, I'll believe it when I see it. They put out some lofty goals, but yes, they do make their own miners. I would have to assume they're going to be using their own miners. So that's the first proof of concept. If they can get them up and running for themselves and they're efficient, right, they can prove it themselves. And that, I think, is not even meant necessarily to be the big part of their business. You know, they have, they're a big company. So they're
Can you pull them up?
I'm sorry?
Can you pull them up, BTDR?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just get to, so I'm going to get back to that. I just want to get to Clive, and then we'll pull up BTDR and take a closer look. Thank you, Midway. That is very good comment. There are 3 different things they've got going on, so we'll see what happens. And I do have some BitDeer options. Very small, so that, you know, not financial advice, but when I do options, I play small. I'm a buy and hold, so my positions are larger, but my option stuff, you know, if I can pick up a couple of bucks, obviously there's always risk involved in that, so please be very careful with options. None of this is financial advice, but I do have some BitDeer options. I just feel like when we get to the chart of what all these miners have done over the last few weeks, you're going to see why I have some BitDeer options. They have been a lagger, and I feel like they're ready for a little run. So Clive, thank you very much for the super chat. Thank you very much for being a member. Clive said, Tom, do you think the so-called seasonality will negatively impact Bitcoin in September? So I feel like my answer to that is no. I actually am expecting, and I hate to play the guessing game, but I think September isn't quite a part of the 4th quarter, but I'm expecting from now until the end of the year, at some point, Bitcoin to break out of this trading range and start to move towards those bigger numbers. You know, there's several benchmarks along the way, but the first one is we got to get out of this $68,000 or $69,000, you know, top of this trading range. Then we got to get past 74,000, which is roughly our all-time high, a little under that. Then we got to get to 80, and then we can start to get to points beyond. But I think all of that will happen. I'm not expecting a bad September. We could bounce around and retest, you know, the top of this range, bounce off and go back down to the bottom. That is not out of the question, but I think, you know, some of the stuff that's happened over the last couple of days. The jobs number that came out that I will revisit and we'll take a look at, that was the jobs revision was a disaster. What Powell said at Jackson Hole today, what the futures are pricing in for rate cuts. I just think there's a lot of stuff going on. And, somewhere at this 6 or 7 month mark also historically is when, after a halving I'm talking about, is when Bitcoin starts to make some bigger moves. So no guarantee of that, but I'm not worried. I'm not worried about it. I still, I'm very bullish long term. Again, that is my opinion. Everybody's got their own thoughts on this, but I'm still very bullish. I haven't changed any of my numbers, and the next poll we'll see what you guys think. I think my bull market number of 150,000 has tested, as we've done polls on this channel. That's actually been lower than the consensus, but I'm still expecting, sometime in 2025 to get to 150,000, and it's certainly entirely possible we get to points beyond that. I've seen a lot of people talk about 200,000, 250,000, and then, some numbers much higher than that. Conversely, there are a group of people that think that this was the top and the end. So that would break. Bitcoin would be broken if that's the case. That's all I would say. I'm not saying it can't happen. It's just that would spell this 4-year cycle would be over. That would spell a massive break in everything that's ever happened. Now, just because there's been a 4-year cycle that's played out similarly doesn't mean that that's going to continue to happen forever. But I do not believe that. But just letting you know, there's people on both ends of this, as always.
I did sell in the 70s, by the way. For Bitcoin.
For Bitcoin?
Yep. I sold in the 70s. I bought in the 40s here recently.
Oh, that's right. You've been in and out of Bitcoin. That's true. It was your XRP that was a change for you. You've been holding.
So I'm out of everything in crypto also, and that pisses me off on Poly because I had so much on Poly too. Oh my goodness. But I'm trying to flip a house, and I just, if you can't stay focused, I had to, take that breather. So I'm taking a breather.
Well, and it was a tough, when you got out, a lot of people get flushed out. Not, we talk about the liquidations. Those are people getting forced out, whether it's the shorts getting forced out when Bitcoin pumps up, or the longs getting, forced out, liquidated. So but there's another group of people that, that just, they get worn out. And this is a long time. So if I do an info line, from this day until today, that's 163 days, right? That's especially since pretty much the 15 months before that was a really strong Bitcoin bull market. We bottomed out, we double bottomed in November and then December of 2022 at around 15,500, and we ran from there to 73,800. So, to have that 15-month period and then all of a sudden to be 163 days into trading, inside of a range, really, if you look at this, let me get rid of that line, this has been bearish. We're 5 months into being slightly bearish. This is sideways with, a bias to the downside. So, these are lower lows, these are lower highs. Now, the flip side of all of this is a standard issue bull flag. So if we can ever break out of the top of this, it's not a bull flag until we break out of the top and confirm it. Then we can talk about this was a bull flag. We can talk about what potential price target it would reach. But right now, all we keep doing is trading up and down inside of the same range. So it does get exhausting. So, in addition to the many people that have been liquidated up and down. And for those of you trading on leverage, hopefully you know what you're doing. There are places where you can trade 10x, 25x, 50x, 100x leverage. Technically, I don't think you're allowed to do that in the US. I don't think in the UK either, but I'm not sure about that. And I know that's a lot of our audience, but I know we also have a lot of people from Canada and a lot of other countries in Europe and all around the world. So hello to everybody from around the world. Also, you can drop us a comment in the chat if you're somewhere in the world that you want to shout out from.
By the way, that purchase, just so you know, I am full of shit. I wanted to go right before this, but I didn't. To the bathroom. But the time I bought it at 49 something, I think it was 49,975. It was like 2:30 in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning when we had that little flash crash. Do you remember that, Tom?
Oh yeah.
Trust me, that's why it kills me, crypto, because it's 24/7. It's
crypto never sleeps, and that is that's massive pressure, and it can build. And that's why I try to, everybody has a different comfort level, everybody has a different strategy. I try to look long, I'm the zoom out person. I try to look long term. I believe I have a belief of what's going to happen over the next 12 to 18 months. And I'm going to use that trading strategy. Now, if something drastically breaks inside of that, obviously we'll have to revisit that. For those of you who are members or have been watching for a while, Riot is an example of a company that I did maybe 75 days ago. I said, listen, I'm going to give them the next 90 days. That is a very long-term position for me. I have added and bought on the dip time after time after time. But about 75 days ago, I felt that it was imperative that their next 3 operational updates met certain thresholds. They had been at 12.4 exahash for a long time. And, they talked about that. They were building out their infrastructure for their second facility, but it was time to get that online, see the exahash go up, see the number of Bitcoin go up. And so, I had said, just about 2.5 months ago, if I don't see this in the next 90 days, I will change my strategy on Riot. So, you do have to have a plan. Well, you don't have to, but, in my opinion, you should have a plan how you're going to get into a stock, how you're going to get out of a stock. And, I'll repeat George's mantra. This is all very fluid. You got to be watching what happens. And if things are changing, right? If a company, you're having a certain expectation and they're not meeting that expectation, then you got to at least ask the question. That doesn't mean you bail out at the first sign of trouble, but that was for me. That's what I needed to see. I am satisfied with what I've seen. I don't think the last 2 were, a grand slam home run for Riot, but it was everything that I was expecting. And on the members only stream, Midway did point out Riot was on Tuesday. Riot looked like they were on the brink of a bullish crossover. That did subsequently happen. And, the last several times that's happened over anywhere from the next 3 to 10 days, Riot had pretty nice moves to the upside. So that's one where that's a long-term position for me. So I won't touch my long-term position, but I did buy some short-term options. Again, I'm not recommending that. This is not financial advice. If you don't trade in options, please walk before you run. Options, especially short-term ones, are ultra high risk.
Tom, since you're talking about Riot, we haven't spoken about the Bitfarms stronghold since that happened, and if there's been a response from Riot.
So, okay, let's get to that. I'm just going to ask everybody. I want to thank everybody for 86 likes already. If you could do us a favor, if you just got here or if you haven't smashed the like button, it does help the stream out a lot in real time, and we appreciate it. We're here every Friday for the last 3 or 4 years talking about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. We also do a members only live stream every Tuesday.
Dislike it too. If you dislike it, hit the thumbs down.
I suppose that's
one
true.
way or another.
Either way, let us know what you think.
Either way, let us know.
So, okay, so let's go. Let me find, to your question, George, 2 different questions. Let's get to the, and we won't obsess over this because I know some people are having some fatigue with the Bitfarms Riot situation, but I think we need to update everybody and go through this. This was put out this week. So
I need it.
This is a Schedule 13D. So you can see this is Riot Platforms. They now own 19, or as of the 20th, they owned 19.9% of Bitfarms. So they continue to buy shares of Bitfarms. So the takeover bid is far from over. This battle is going to go on and on. I don't know how it ends. I remain skeptical that they're going to end up with Bitfarms. Meanwhile, Bitfarms has made some big moves. They did a big acquisition, and it did a couple of things. We'll talk about the merits of this and of this acquisition. So Bitfarms bought Stronghold. Stronghold is one of the 7 stocks that by popular demand we dropped off of our list because their market cap was so many multiples smaller than the 12 that we're covering. We dropped 7 off the list.
It's already bought? It's already done deal?
Well, it's not closed, but I'll go through that press release. They did a presentation on it, and
I thought I missed something.
No,
I was like, what? They bought it?
It's an all-stock deal. So to me, I think in addition to the fact that management truly believes, and they say they've been talking to them for years about potentially acquiring them. So this certainly is not new. For those of you who want to put this on Ben because he just got there. Ben Gagnon was just so. They just put a new chief executive officer, CEO, which is Ben Gagnon. He was, in charge of their mining, as you guys, most of you probably know. We've had Ben on the channel. I'm a big fan of Ben. I think most retail investors really like Ben. I think he's a super sharp guy. This is different territory than he's used to being in, but I expect him to do okay. But I will just tell you, for the people that are going to, say, oh, this is on Ben, a merger like this or an acquisition like this does not happen overnight. He's been the CEO for a very short period of time. So, they were deep. They said years. Who knows what the reality is, but they were deep into talks about this. So they pulled the trigger on the deal. A couple of things. This is a poison pill in a couple of different ways as it pertains to the Riot situation. So to go, full circle, and then we'll talk about the Stronghold situation. It's an all-stock deal, which means they're going to dilute a bunch. So, Riot had bought themselves up to 19.9%. And, if this deal closes, there's another $125 million approximately worth of stock that will be issued in this all-stock transaction, which means Riot's going to have to buy a bunch of more stock to be at this 19.9 threshold. They are staying at the 19.9 threshold at the moment because there's another poison pill that will kick in if they get to 20%. So that would cause a dilution event for Riot in specific if that holds up. The last time Bitfarms tried that, they tried it at 15%. It got rejected by the exchange. So we'll see. That stuff's all a little more complicated, not for this, but it does two things. So this is a bunch of extra shares of stock, which causes dilution. In addition to that, I'm just going to pull up, have this somewhere here. Okay, so this is Stronghold's balance sheet. This is as of June 30th, and I just want to point out a couple of numbers. You'll see, I don't know if you guys can see this. Maybe I can zoom in on it. What?
I'm puking.
Yeah, exactly. So, I zoomed in. Hopefully you guys can see this, and we can take a look at a couple of numbers. This 16 million is the current portion. Hold on. Yep. That's the current portion of their long-term debt. They've got another 38.5 million. So, they got 54 or 55 million dollars of debt that Bitfarms is going to have to take on. In addition to that, they got accounts payable of 13 million. They've got accrued liabilities of 11 million. So all told, there's $100 million of liabilities. That is dramatic. they have 15 million in current assets. They have 152 million. So Bitfarms' balance sheet doesn't look like this at all. So if they buy this out and merge, some of these numbers will go away or go down. So it won't be this full 100 million, but the debt is the debt. Accounts payable are accounts payable. So, this is bringing on a lot. So a lot of times when a company's facing a hostile takeover, and I'm not saying that's why they did this. I think, they may feel it also stands on its own merits. But one of the standard issue moves if somebody's trying to do a hostile takeover of your company, and remember what's happening is, if you believe in Bitfarms and you think that their stock is going a lot higher, Riot is sitting here trying to buy them in the, $2 range at the moment. They're accumulating stock. So one of the standard issue ways to fend this off is to take on a bunch of debt through an acquisition like this. So, I think in my opinion, I think there's a component of that going on. I don't think they would have just straight up done this to make their balance sheet worse if they didn't think there was a lot of value here. They did have a presentation they put together. Go ahead, George.
Did you watch it, the presentation?
I went through their investor deck. And so I haven't listened to the conference call, but I went through their investor deck and looked at exactly what, their thesis is on this. And I have a couple of pages of that up that I'll go through. I don't want to spend the whole stream on this, but I do think this is a major purchase, right? There's not a lot of these acquisitions that go on. And we've been talking about mergers and acquisitions. We've been expecting mergers and acquisitions. And I do think a lot more of this will happen, particularly the 7 that we kicked off the list. George and I have been saying when we removed those 7 companies, I felt that this Stronghold was the one out of the 7 that I felt strongly somebody was going to buy and was worth buying. So I'm not sure I would have thought that it was going to be Bitfarms. So it does surprise me that it's Bitfarms. I thought it would have been one of the bigger companies that absorbed this. So let me give you just the 2. We'll go to what I was talking about and
tell me what this deal has to offer better than what Riot has to offer. Or you want to go through this first?
It goes right to your question. Here's 2 pages from their presentation. Vertically integrated power generation and expansion potential, 307 megawatts short-term potential power. So that would be a big increase. And then 955 plus megawatts of long-term potential. So almost a gigawatt of potential additional. So this is a massive infrastructure play. Yes, Stronghold does actually have, or at their peak a few months ago, they had 4 exahash of Bitcoin miners mining. I don't think that the value in those is probably small. They're not the latest and greatest machines. But that'll bring me to the next slide. So almost a gigawatt of potential power. This is a total infrastructure play. And then the second half of this equation would be if you play this out, and here's that 4 exahash that they're saying they still currently have. If they swap out, so without growth, if they just swap out the machines that Stronghold has, and that's why I say there's not a lot of value in those. If they get these S21 XPs, they could turn that into 10.7 additional exahash with the infrastructure that's there right now. If they get to the 307 megawatts of exahash, which is a short-term goal, right? The 950 something exahash was a longer-term potential. That would be another 22 exahash, almost 23 exahash of Bitcoin miners if they buy these latest and greatest S21 XPs, which have a efficiency of 13.5. They say watts per terahash. Most say joules per terahash. It's the same thing. So, there's a massive, they could grow massively. And remember, they already have organic growth planned up to 21 exahash. They were at 11. They're going to be at 12 imminently. And then they were planning on getting to 21 without any of this. So, this could potentially get them to, and they had talked about a target by the end of 2025 of getting to 35 exahash. So, as they've talked about that, this may have been a part of the plan all along because, they've said they've been in talks with these guys for quite some time. And, that's 21 to 35 is another 14 exahash. So, whether they may have other deals, I'm sure most of these companies are pursuing both organic growth and inorganic growth, being mergers, acquisitions, etc. And the harder part of this is the power and the infrastructure. That's what these companies, I expect the vast majority of the merger and acquisition season that everybody's been talking about for all this time to be power infrastructure, not Bitcoin, buying a Bitcoin mining company for their Bitcoin miners. Most of the smaller companies, Bitcoin miners, probably all have to be replaced, imminently anyway.
Knee jerk, Tom? My knee jerk?
Your knee jerk reaction to this?
I do not like it.
You do not like this deal. So let's ask.
Not like this deal.
Let's close out the other poll and see what people think. So first of all, will Bitcoin continue the run to 68K over the next few weeks? 83% of you said yes. We got 150 votes on that. So thank you, everybody, for voting. So overwhelmingly, people feel like we're going to at least get back up to the top of that trading range that we've been in for 5.5 months. So that's what people think. Let's see.
I think they did this to screw with Riot. I think that's why they did it. I think they were waiting for it to go BK. This has got to be on the verge of going BK. You know what I mean? It's so upside down.
Stronghold, I mean, you saw their balance sheet. It's not pretty. So, I mean,
you wait a few more months, you could probably get that for half price.
This company did something, not this quarter, but last quarter, that you very, very rarely see. They actually said on their conference call that they are open to selling the company. So this was no secret. They put themselves on the market, in a very public way on their conference call. So privately.
Any place on here, did they say they're now going to be a US-based Bitcoin mining company?
So this will not switch them to their Bitfarms is a Canadian-based company. They do talk about their power mix. Let me get to, so they're not going to change themselves to a US company inside of this, but let me find.
Wow.
I can just see.
That would be the only reason why I would do this deal. That's the best bang for their buck.
So you can see they're talking about their expand and rebalance energy portfolio. 22% US, 48% North America, and then pro forma power capacity by the end of next year. They're looking at maybe 47% in the US and 65% in North America. So they're also, as you can see, they're in Paraguay. They do have a lot of potential in Argentina, but things did not go as planned in Argentina. So that's turning into a smaller and smaller piece of their puzzle. If they play this out the way they expect, it's only 9% now. It's going to go down to 6%. But Paraguay is working out so far very well. There was a scare in the middle. Let me start this poll first. It's a simple one.
I might call Jason.
And that is, do you like the Bitfarms purchase of Stronghold? So do you like this deal or no? Is this a yes or a no for you guys?
I'm calling Jason because I want to do a video of why this sucks.
You want to get
that?
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. What are they going to get from this deal that they wouldn't get from merging or being bought by Riot?
Well, if you're a shareholder, you're going to get shareholder value. If you're Riot, then you don't like this deal. But if you're Bitfarms and you're going to get bought out for $2, what this deal hopefully does is you're able to maintain your company, stave off this hostile takeover event, and double or triple or quadruple your stock price. That's what management's, whether or not that ever happens, I'm not saying, but that would be management's objective, right? They'd like to see their stock at $8 or $10 a share, not have Riot steal's the wrong word, but get it for a steal at $2 or $3 a share. This is not a community. Bitfarms management's looking out for Bitfarms and Bitfarms shareholders, not Riot's shareholders.
They're looking out for their jobs, Tom. You know that.
Well, obviously,
they got to get 30%. Riot has to get 30% people on their side to vote no on this deal. What type of floats out there? 70%, 60%?
Yeah, there's a big float out there. So,
Yeah.
right, this deal isn't done until it's closed. So we don't know if this is ever going to happen.
This one could be, yeah, it could be another one of the Mountain Dew machines.
I will remind you that Stronghold does have an underlying energy company. I mean, before they ever started mining Bitcoin, they were an energy company. They do something very specific, and I'm actually a big fan of what they do. There is also a lawsuit out there that they're polluting, although, you know, conceptually, based on what they do, if you do, I don't want to spend our, you know, too much time on Stronghold, but they are taking, you know, I think it's like hundreds of millions or billions of tons of coal, the sludge that was left over after coal mining for 100 years in the Pennsylvania area, and they're utilizing that to create power, and their concept was, with that power, we'll mine Bitcoin. So they are a power company.
My whole thing is, I hope Jason over there at Riot does what they have to offer Bitfarms, because if they're just talking about power, dude, they can have Bitcoin, they can have Riot stock.
Well, I mean, if you're just trading Bitfarm stock for Riot stock, then you think Riot's a better company. I mean, if you're Bitfarms, you want to do this on your own. You don't want to give over your stuff so that somebody else gets to do it for themselves.
I don't even know. C just said, I don't even know what Stronghold does.
Well,
Tom, what do they do, Tom?
I mean,
we love that company. We went so deep into that company.
Right.
Do you remember?
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, we know what they do. They just don't do it efficiently. Let's put it on.
Edmund, when they say he's saying Tom, watts and joules are not equivalent. Watts equal joules per second. That's right. So when they say 13.5 joules, they're talking, or watts, they're using it the same way that other companies use joules per second. So it's the same metric. But yes, watts equals joules per second. Thank you, Edmund. You guys can go check out. There's a video right on Stronghold's front page, or there was for years, on what they do. Right, they're theoretically they're cleaning up, you know, toxic waste, and in the process using that to create energy, and, you know, with that energy to mine Bitcoin. Now, they've also sold energy over time, but if you look at their financial statements, the amount of energy they sell is tiny. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on. It seems like, you know, they have 4 exahash of Bitcoin miners. They've shifted back towards that. I don't know. Since the halving, they haven't really reported too much on that. So I don't know what the answer to this is. I mean, there's a lot of potential in this company, but with all of that potential comes, you know, a bunch of debt, you know, and some other things. A ton of debt. They've got a lawsuit outstanding, but who doesn't? So I'm
getting compliments. There's a guy named C that really likes me. He goes, "Thank goodness George knows more than those have been in the Bitcoin business for years and years." I agree. It is. Thank
goodness you're here, George.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a company and have 4 CEOs in 3 years?
I think that you're talking about Bitfarms?
Yeah.
I think they've had 5 in 5 years. I think. I'm not sure. You guys can double check me on that.
Yeah, business is about management. You can figure out any company if you spend enough time and figuring out ways to win, but it's about management. I mean, that's all, and execute a plan. That's all it is.
I'll read a couple of things Robert Anderson said. Robert, thanks for being a member. Said, Bitfarms has better control of their own destiny this way. Why would you want to be led by winded head? Robert Anderson said, Riot needs Bitfarms more than vice versa. So, I mean, I agree. Bitfarms doesn't really need Riot at all. There's no, and they're not going to get anything. The relationship that's happening there is Bitfarms is never going to get anything from Riot. They're either going to get consumed by Riot or stand on their own. So Riot could greatly, but I think, it's everybody's opinion, but I think, Riot would be if they somehow get Bitfarms, the flips, I own both, stock in both of these companies. So not financial advice. These are two companies I think are going to succeed long-term. I'd prefer to see Bitfarms succeed on its own, but if Riot ends up buying them, well, I'm a shareholder there too. And I suppose I'll get the benefit that way, but I would prefer to see them both succeed on their own. That's my personal opinion. I know you're looking at this through Riot's eyes, George, and thinking, what?
I'm looking at it from a stockholder's point of view, Tom.
So,
who do you think would be the best for the stockholder? And I mean, they had a golden opportunity. Bitfarms had a golden opportunity to switch their company to a U.S.-based company. Look at some history here. Look at what Hut did. I mean,
that's the blueprint for this. Hut did a merger of equals, so it wasn't an acquisition. They did a merger of equals, created a new company, and switched from a Canadian company to a U.S. company. And George is bringing this up because a lot of institutional money, it's not an absolute barrier, but, if you just look, institutions, the larger institutions where the massive amount of money is on the New York Stock Exchange, et cetera, the NASDAQ, there's a lot of money in the U.S. and they're more likely to, invest in a U.S.-based company. But they're not excluded from investing in foreign companies by any means. And remember, they are listed, all of the Canadian companies, and by all, I'll quantify, over somewhere in the year 2021, I think it was all four of them, Bitfarms, Hut 8, Hive, and DigiHost all listed themselves on the NASDAQ. So they are traded on the NASDAQ, but they're not based in the United States.
Yeah. And I mean, that's an opportunity right there to increase the value of your company quickly.
So let's just look at and take this for whatever it's worth, because Yahoo Finance, sometimes their numbers are correct, sometimes they're not correct. Top institutional holders. So you'll see the big money hasn't moved. The big money has not moved into Bitfarms. And what I mean by that is you'll see some of the big money is moving in, but at very small numbers. State Street and Morgan Stanley. There's four companies you'll usually see if you look at anything. The top two, George, the top two companies that you will typically see if we go to any investment, and even inside of the Bitcoin miner. So if I go to Marathon, so Marathon and Riot have been listed on the NASDAQ by far the longest. So if we do the same thing for those companies, if you go to Marathon, you'll see BlackRock and Vanguard. Okay, so that's the big institutional money. And then you'll see State Street. So State Street, Morgan Stanley, Susquehanna, there's several other bigger companies, but you'll see they tend to be 3%, 2%, 1%. BlackRock and Vanguard, that's big institutional money moving in. So that's already happened with Marathon. They have 11% and 14.6%. So that's Marathon. If we look at Riot, I'm going to guess it's similar scenario. And we've looked at this over time. Vanguard and BlackRock, just under 10% and 7%. So to George's point, those are longer term US based companies. And then if we go back to Bitfarms, they're not even on the list. So BlackRock and Vanguard have not even really started building out a position in this. And so we don't know if they will or not. Midway 1, thank you for the super chat. Midway 1 said, what are your thoughts about Bitfarms continuing to do a synthetic HODL strategy Are you surprised that the other Bitcoin miner companies haven't tried to do something similar? So Bitfarms hired kind of a risk management person, and they're using options and futures and that kind of stuff to synthetically hodl Bitcoin because they weren't able to, for financial reasons. And they did make a big misstep that it's behind them now, but they had to spend their time getting their debt down to zero, which was a big deal in my mind, which they did on schedule, and growing their business. So that did not leave a lot of money left over to hodl. So they've hodled synthetic. I'm not surprised. I feel like this is a very small piece of their puzzle. That's my opinion. And I don't think this is the future for the Bitcoin miners. I do like the Bitcoin miners that are able to hodl more Bitcoin. Bitfarms has started hodling more Bitcoin again. Let's just go to the list. I've got all this up here somewhere. So through July, Bitfarms now has over 1,000. So this is as of July 31st monthly operational reports. That's the latest and greatest reports. You'll see Bitfarms has over 1,000 actual Bitcoin on their balance sheet. There's not a lot of companies that hodl. You'll see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That puts them in 7th place. There are several Bitcoin mining companies that just sell all their Bitcoin as they get them. So, there's different philosophies out there, and different people, have different feelings about that. But you'll see there's 4 that are just way ahead of everybody else. It's really unrealistic to think that anybody's going to catch these 4. Marathon, this number already they've blown by. So they were at 20,800. They spent $100 million in July buying Bitcoin, in addition to hodling the nearly 600 that they mined. And now, subsequent to that, they raised $300 million and went out and bought over 4,000 Bitcoin in August. So in addition to hodling 100% of their Bitcoin, which they said they're going to do from now on, they are raising convertible debt and buying Bitcoin. So that is the MicroStrategy formula. So Marathon holds the second most amount of Bitcoin of any publicly traded company in the world. Obviously, we all know MicroStrategy holds the most, and it's tenfold this. But you'll see Riot has now moved into second. They're likely to get past 10,000 this month. So Marathon, Riot, Hut has held their stack. So since their merger of equals on November 30th of last year, that's now 9 months ago. They have not sold any of their hodl, and they may have sold 2 or 3 or 4, but they've held on to their stack. So they don't mine very much Bitcoin. They can't add to their stack so far, but they have held their stack. So that leaves them in 3rd place. CleanSpark's in 4th place. So I would expect sometime by the end of the year, CleanSpark to pass Hut. All other things being equal, there's no guarantee of that. But CleanSpark hodled 99% of the Bitcoin that they mined in July. And that seems to be, they're now almost a year into hodling 99% of the Bitcoin they mine. And that has allowed them to get from 500 Bitcoin to 7,000 Bitcoin. So they did grow their exahash significantly prior to the halving and bank all of their Bitcoin. So it's made a big difference. You can see that's put them in this conversation when they were not. So these 4 companies, I think, stand out. But Hive, Cypher's been adding on a regular basis. Bitfarms is a little bit over 1,000. Bit Digital, this number, they actually sold a bunch of Bitcoin a few months ago, and now it seems like they're trying to build their stack back up. But I just feel like these 4 have broken out. So to Midway's point, I don't know, maybe this synthetic strategy, which costs a lot less money than straight hodling all of your Bitcoin, could be a way to participate if these companies believe there's a bunch of upside coming over the next year in Bitcoin. I know, George, you can speak on this. You do not. What are your thoughts on the companies that do not hodl Bitcoin, that have zero hodl?
What's the sense of being in business if you believe in an asset that's going to take off?
Right. So George is not a fan of that formula, and he's not alone. And there's a split out there. And I'll get to an article about a money manager that, feels the same way.
How many years we've been doing this channel now?
It could be coming up on 4, 3.5, maybe.
least give me 4 years experience. Maybe not 1, but 4 years experience.
Yeah, we've been doing this for a while now. So
Yeah.
thank you, Midway, again, for being a member, and thank you for the super chat. So do you like the Bitfarms purchase a stronghold? I'll close this out. It's 64% say yes, 36% say no. It's a super complicated situation, and I don't think we're, the first thing we're going to have to see is, does this ever actually close, to George's point? Does this really happen? What's the motivation behind this? And it's going to take time to see if they can integrate this.
Remember how long we waited for the U.S. Bitcoin and HUD to close?
Oh, right. That took so much longer than expected. That it took, and it's got to go through some regulatory hoops to get this done. You got to go through shareholder votes. You got to go through a lot of stuff. So we'll see if it gets done. If it gets done, we'll see how it plays out.
I'll tell you one of the things I would be doing. I would be looking at my debt, and I'd be on the phone saying, "Hey, we're about ready to buy your stronghold, and you want to give me a deal on your debt?"
Yeah, well,
I guarantee they are. But what do I know? I'm a new investor.
That's a lot of debt to take on. Now,
if they didn't have the debt, I would love it. If they had even half the amount of debt, it just Bitfarms likes to get in trouble with debt.
They had, right. But I will say, all these market caps, even with Bitfarms at a price that I think is really low, they're still at, I think $1 billion market cap. And this is at the very low end of the top 10 Bitcoin miners. This is at the very low end of that, but they're at $1 billion. So, $50 or $60 million of debt. Nobody, no one's looking to take on a bunch of debt, right? So there better be a good reason for taking on this debt. They better, feel that the value of the rest of what they offer warrants this. So it is an all stock deal, so they don't have to come out of pocket. So that helps mitigate, right? Because if they had to spend money to buy it and then, spend money to pay the principal on the debt, to pay the interest on the debt for these Bitcoin miners has not been a great formula. Traditional debt. We see a lot of convertible debt now, seems to be a brand new thing. There were 3 big convertible debt offerings last week. 2 of them were very successful. They were oversold. And, those are at very low interest rates. That is good debt. The debt that Stronghold has on their balance sheet is more traditional debt. It's tough. So this is a tough call, right? And that's why I think the voters were pretty split on this. We'll see what comes of this. But that was definitely in a week that was pretty quiet for the Bitcoin miners from a news cycle standpoint. That was the big news of the week by a mile.
It says here, someone IP just said Bitcoin's on fire. Let's see, Tom.
Go to the chart. Let's go to the chart. Whoa. Let me switch here.
You know why I bet you this is happening today?
What are you thinking?
Robert Kennedy.
Oh, there's this. I don't know when he's talking, but he said he was going to make a big announcement today.
He did. He made a humongous announcement. I listened to it live. Only thing I'm going to say is everybody is in the U.S. that's going to vote this year should go and listen to what he said. What he said, it's so eye-opening. It's crazy.
Did he drop out of the race?
Yes, he did.
Okay. Well, there you go. I mean, Bitcoin is just on fire. And this goes to just what we were talking about. I mean, here we are. Look how overbought we are, even on these small time frames. And we still this pump continues. I mean, this is a massive pump.
I think that, now people feel that, Trump's going to win because, what he said.
Let's go with that said, George, let's go to the betting markets because this has been all over the place. At one point, about 8 or 10 days ago, Harris was up 10% in the crypto betting market. So poly market, I'm not encouraging betting in any way, shape, or form. And this may be legal or illegal based on where you live. I don't know. But we're just going to look at what's going on. So let me just refresh and see, because this changes. This is in real time, so you can see it just changed from minute to minute. So this is now super close, 50 to 49. And again, this is not a poll. This is people betting. And I think there's about $700 million. It should say that on here somewhere. About $700 million.
Up for grabs?
That's been bet. Oh boy, that's not helping. You can bet on everything under the sun here. So poly market is a format where you can, with using cryptocurrency, you can bet on a variety of things, including the presidential election. And this has been flip-flopping all over the place. So I'm just not sure how predictable this is at all, but I'm just showing it to you guys. Again, it's
still within the standard deviation.
I mean, this is a virtual statistical tie at the moment. But if you look, I mean, this is how radically this has changed. And this is why, it's hard to rely on these things. If you go back to July 15th, Trump was at 71%, that's versus 18%. And, you fast forward a month and you get at the peak here. There was a day, let me find it. So here's Harris 54, Trump 45. So that was a 9-point lead on August 15th. That's only 8 days ago. So you can see this is flip-flopping all over the place. I have no idea, just based on the amount of flip-flopping this has done, I'm not sure that this is any indication of anything at all, other than the fact that there's an awful lot of people that like to bet. So
I don't understand what this is. What is this?
Polymarket.com. So you can, with your cryptocurrency, you can bet on who's going to win the election. And you can bet on a million things. You can bet here. I'm not promoting this site, please. This is not.
I'm not promoting this site, but
I'm just showing you what it is. This is, I've
never heard of it.
You can bet on the Super Bowl. You can bet on whatever you want here. So
who do they have? The Chiefs and who?
The Chiefs and the 49ers. They have, for those of you who watch football, those are the two big favorites to win the Super Bowl from a betting standpoint on Poly Market for whatever that's worth. So you had mentioned this, and so I'm just looking at it, but we'll move on.
Bet on the Buffalo Bills to make it. Do they have it just to make it?
They're not going to win. Well, they're in 6th place on the betting list to win the Super Bowl at 5%.
Nice.
Chiefs aren't even going to make the playoffs.
Chiefs aren't going to make the playoffs.
Well, that would be a big surprise.
Well, they definitely didn't want me against Chicago.
Okay. People get mad when you start talking. No, because they can't see you.
All right, so let's get on to what is next. Because there were some other things that happened, but thank you. Who pointed that out, that Bitcoin was running again? Because we ran up to 64,800. So, I mean, we're approaching 65,000. I mean,
thanks, IP.
Thank you, IP. To put in perspective, again, at the close of the U.S. equity markets yesterday, we were at around 60,000. So we're approaching 65,000. Remember, we flash crashed down to in the 49,000 range. So let's go to the 1 day and just look. I mean, that was only, August 5th. It's August 23rd. This has been a big move this has been a 30% run up, in a few weeks here. Now, this was a flash crash, so, several $1,000s of this didn't even make it through the daily candle close. But the fact is, we did get down to, under 49,000. Well, $49,050 on this chart. So we got to 49,000. We tested 49,000. Now we're over 64,000. And let's go back to, just to put in perspective, inside of this you know, this trading range, I mean, we are rapidly getting. So just as an equity trader, I would hate to see this happen over the weekend, bounce off of here Sunday night and start the descent next week. That would be awfully fast. I am not expecting that. We're very overbought right now on the shorter time frames. So although we continue to pump, and the more we pump, the better it is, because, you know, that gives some room to reset some of these technicals and, you know, still bounce off. Maybe we bounce off, even if we go back and retest 62,000 and bounce off and turn this back into support, right? This was resistance for, you know, once we took this big move to the downside, this proved to be resistance for several weeks. So if we can turn that into support, that might be, you know, a basis to take the next leg up. So let's just go real quickly. I'll if I can do this, play 5 seconds of, if you guys can hear this. This was Jerome Powell. I'm literally just going to play 10 seconds because this is what mattered. This is what he said.
FOMC statement, we are attentive to the risks to both sides of our dual mandate. The time has come for policy to adjust.
Boom. That's it. And here it is. The time has come. So that basically, he went on to say, we see the Fed notes came out, was it yesterday or the day before? Most of the members of the Fed were in favor of a rate cut in September in the July Fed notes. And now here's Jerome Powell saying the time has come. And, you know, he's got some data points since then. We'll just visit one of those. This came out on Wednesday. So this was a highly anticipated number, and this was the worst. So once a year, there's a big adjustment to the payroll numbers, and it's based on, you know, the data they compile. So they revised the 12 months ended March 31st. Every year they do this. 818,000 revision to the downside. That's the worst revision to the downside, I think, since, yeah, so you can see since 2009, which was the, you know, financial crisis. So this is the worst one we've had since the financial crisis. This was a gigantic revision downward. So, you know, a lot of these months where the Fed was kind of hanging their hat on the fact that the job market is strong. They have the Fed, to remind everybody, has a dual mandate. They need to, employment is one half of it, and keeping employment healthy, and the other half is keeping inflation in check. Their target inflation number, as everybody knows, is 2%. So, you know, over the last several years, it seemed like the job market was not only healthy, but back in March, they were saying the job market's hot. And now we find out, you know, there's the better part of 1 million less jobs created than we thought. So these still don't, even adjusted down, they're not awful numbers, but that's a significant. Again, this is the worst adjustment since the financial crisis of 2009. So this allows them to say, hey, you know, between balancing the two, we keep getting better numbers month after month after month. CPI data improves. It's still not where they want it, but it's improving. And the labor numbers are no good. Remember, we got that surprise when we flash crashed down to 49,000. That was off of the back of that unemployment number in the U.S. that we were expecting to come in at 4.1%, and it came in at 4.3%, and the market lost their mind. So we got that.
Imagine what it should have come in at.
Right. Who knows what the real number is? But between this 818,000 revision down in jobs added, you know, there's a lot of stuff coming in that allows the Fed. It's a lot easier now for the Fed to start cutting rates. So we'll take a look at what the CME futures tool is saying. And so it moved a little bit. Still, we were already, prior to any of this data, for the last week, we've been pricing in a zero. And that doesn't mean, you know, anything can happen, but this is based on the futures. It was pricing in a 0% chance that there would be no rate cut. So 100% chance of a rate cut. The conversation is it going to be 25 basis points or 50 basis points? So even after this news today, the market's still leaning towards a 25 basis point rate cut, but we did go from yesterday a 24% chance of a 50 basis point cut to now a 36.5% chance. So trending a little bit up. If you guys remember, during that flash crash a few weeks ago, when we got that unemployment number, this shifted to like 75% chance of a 50 basis point rate hike. And a lot of people were even saying, you know, they can't even wait until September. We've got to have an emergency meeting. They've got to do something right now. And we talked a lot on the Friday live stream that day that it felt like a massive overreaction. Not that it wasn't real, but a massive overreaction. And this would kind of move back to a more normal place, which it did in the weeks to come. But
when is that meeting? The 20th of September?
September 18th is the next Fed meeting.
Wow. It's just so long. It's still a month away.
Right. We're still a month away. So, you know, and that's why a lot of people were saying we need an emergency Fed meeting and get this done sooner because, you know, that at the time, you know, it was a month and a half away and that felt like too long to wait. And you never know, that could, if we get some more, you know, very bad data, they could do that, but it's pretty rare. The Fed does not like to go outside of their normal meeting schedule. It you know, it looks like a panic move at that point. So I think if at all possible, you know, they'll wait until September is most, in my opinion, the by far most likely scenario. But we could easily see, you know, this says 36.5%, but we could easily see a 50 basis point rate cut. There's an awful lot of large institutions pounding the table that they better do a 50 basis point rate cut now. They're already behind the curve. So there's a lot of pressure, external pressure from them. Jerome Powell has been fairly resistant to external pressure over the last couple of years, in case anybody hasn't noticed. And Robin is saying 75 is on its way. So, man, if we got a 75 basis point rate cut, that would be a shock to the market. And, you know, that theoretically should be big move to Bitcoin. So that leads, let's talk DXY, because that's the natural extension of all of this, which is the strength of the dollar, something we follow on this channel a lot. I know a lot of you follow this very closely. We've had, you can see from really all of August, this is July 29th up here, we're the better part of a month into the DXY, you know, relatively speaking, this has been tanking. A big move down again today, and you can see this brings it back down to, this was the lows of December 2023, and then you got to go back to July. So this is a, you know, July of 2023, over a year ago, is the last time we were in this territory on the DXY, which is, so as this gets lower, that means the strength of the US dollar versus foreign currencies is getting weaker. Just to keep this in perspective, for those of you who are new to the channel, this green line, as of 2022, this was a 20-year high in strength of the US dollar. So we've spent the last couple of years fluctuating on one side or the other of what is a 20-year high. So even this, you know, I'm calling this from here, that's a big move to the downside, and it feels like this is tanking. But this is historically speaking, if I go, you know, if I turn this into a 1-week chart, historically speaking, this is still very high. I mean, look, you know, you go back, this is 20 years. I mean, it very rarely gets into this. This was 2002. So since 2002, you know, we touched this line once, and then it wasn't until 2022 that we started trading in this range. So, you know, we could get a lot lower than this, and the dollar would still, in general, be considered in a healthy spot. But typically speaking, this going down, the DXY going down is, typically speaking, it's considered bullish for the market. In particular, risk on assets, cryptocurrency universe, you know, still is considered very risk on asset. You'll see, I'm going to go to the overall market today because we didn't talk about that. And you can see the S&P was up 1%. The Dow was up 1%. The NASDAQ was up 1.5%. The Russell 2000, which is the smaller companies, that was up 3% today. So that dramatically outperformed. So when we get, these rate cuts favors big time the small companies. So, this should be good news for the Bitcoin miners. And we did see a nice green day today. I think that was more so because Bitcoin ran like crazy. But there are days where Bitcoin goes up and the Bitcoin miners go down and vice versa. So, on a long-term time frame, they move together. But in the short term, they can do quite the opposite. But here was a day where Bitcoin was up big. The small caps were up big. So that led to, Marathon, which is the largest by market cap, was up almost 11% today. So that was a big move to the upside. And we are still getting this pump in Bitcoin right now as we speak. We're at 64,500. So in the middle of the trading day, this is actually just a couple hours before the end of the trading day in the U.S. equity markets. We were several hours into being overbought on very short-term timeframes. I thought this was going to kind of go sideways at this line of resistance. But, we've put this in the rearview mirror in a way that I am surprised. And then we put this, we spent 1 hour consolidating around this line. And now that's in the rearview mirror. Now, we'll see. We could have a big pullback over the weekend. You guys have seen, here's a microcosm. These are on the 15-minute candles. You had a giant move to the upside, and then 3 candles erased the whole thing. So we've seen that on larger time frames. If I go to the 1 day, we've seen similar things. Here was a big move to the downside and then, right back up. So we see this type of stuff. So there's no telling. But it is this looks like very good news. And I want to show you one other chart where at the beginning I said there was a big signal that is the reason I think this is a breakout. And I haven't gotten to that chart. So let me get to it. This is Bitcoin on the 4-hour time frame. So this goes back to basically, August 7th. So we've been inside of a range that it looked like we kind of had a little fake out on the 20th on Tuesday and got back in the range. But then this is classic. This is exactly what you hope to see. And again, nothing is a guarantee, but this candle broke out and then you can see we moved back down, bounced exactly off of this line. And once we did that, boom, off to the races. So this is a textbook example of a breakout, a retest, which is healthy. That's a second confirmation of a breakout. So it may feel bad to pull back, but bouncing off of this line, this was a line of resistance, turning this into support and moving up from here, just from a technical standpoint, this is very encouraging. So, again, this could all be broken by tomorrow for all I know. But in the meantime, this is exactly what I've been watching this for weeks and we've talked about this. This is what we were hoping for. This is the move we were looking for. And this is another example of once we get a breakout, things tend to run. And here we see this running. This was at around 60,000 was the kind of the peak of this here, where, it was going to break one way or the other by then. So, we're now at 64,400. So very big move. That's why I feel like we've got a breakout going here. And then if I go, the other thing is, and the reason I do think we may see a pullback over the weekend, even on the 4-hour time frame, you'll see the RSI is now in overbought territory. So this can get higher. This can get up to 80 or 85, right? We saw this get up to 83 in July. So this could keep running. And, I want to go to the 1 day because that's where we really see, whether or not we have a short-term pullback, there's a lot of room left on the 1 day, right? This can also get up to, this got up to 87 in February. This gets up over 80 on a regular basis. And we're still, at 59 right now. So on a bigger picture standpoint, we have a lot of room left on the daily RSI to the upside. So that's why I feel like we really should be able to at least test the top of this range. The only thing I will always say every time is I just can't tell you how many times I've been fooled where it looks like everything's set up. All these things look like they're telling us one thing, and then boom, some external thing happens and it just never gets quite where it's going. So obviously there are no guarantees in investing, but I am bullish. I did feel like we were going to take the run up from the bottom to the top of this range. And I will say, I'm not saying we're going to break out of the top of this range. That I am not confident of in the short term. But it does seem like we're headed towards at least retesting the top of this range. Then that's going to be an important time to have a plan. Is there profit taking? Do you buy protection? What do you do? What's everything? What's everything look like from a technical standpoint, from world events standpoint? What do things look like? But we're not there yet.
People might think of me differently, Tom.
You jamming on the guitar?
Yeah.
We got George on the guitar.
You got to see the collection here.
Midway saying BitQ is well managed. In my opinion, it's a good ETF choice for Bitcoin stocks. So BitQ, we'll go take a look at that. Midway's pointing that out. So for those of you who don't necessarily, if you want to diversify, if you like the Bitcoin miners, but you're not sure which one to pick, or you don't want to concentrate your risk in one, this Bitwise crypto industry, stock ticker BITQ, if you look at their holdings, their Marathon. So this is not only Bitcoin miners, but Bitcoin related. Marathon, MicroStrategy, Coinbase, Core Scientific, Cypher, TerraWolf, Bitfarms, Riot, CleanSpark, Galaxy Digital. So this is Bitcoin and Bitcoin related assets as a ETF. So, if you don't feel like you have enough money, or you're not sure how to diversify, but you want exposure, this would be a different way to play, Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. And Midway's saying, I assume Midway has money in this. He's saying BitQ is well managed, in my opinion. It's a good ETF choice for Bitcoin stocks. So that's what that looks like. Keep our eye. We're seem to be consolidating over 64,000. Let's see if we can hold there. This has been one of the biggest pump Fridays and pump during the live stream. We've suffered a lot of rough Fridays together, everybody. So I'll just take a moment and congratulate everybody that is here. Except George. I congratulate you on all the other things you're succeeding at, George. But congratulations to those of you who are here, invested in the Bitcoin miners or in Bitcoin or whatever the case may be. We've had a lot of rough Fridays that we've tried to, make our way through. This is not one of them. This is as, I won't say it's as good as it gets, but this is one of the good Fridays. The Bitcoin miners, and I'm going to go to their chart of what they've done over the last 8 days. They performed very well. Today, this was not stellar performance on a day where Bitcoin was up almost 6%. Marathon, being the largest market cap, Marathon performed very well, up 10.8%. CleanSpark up 6%. Riot 5.5%. Iris Energy, 6.4%. Core Scientific just under 9%. TerraWolf underperformed, but when we get to the chart in 1 minute, you're going to see why. 2.5%. BitDeer 7.8%. HUT 9.7%. Cypher 5.4%. Bitfarms just under 8%. Hive just under 15%. And then BitDigital 1%. The small ones, so the ones we're not tracking anymore, these are the 25, 50, $75 million market cap ones versus the billion. Argo Blockchain up almost 13%. DigiHost 16%. Stronghold 10%. Mawson 12. So some big moves down there.
What about any?
Any was up 4.7%. For those of you in MicroStrategy, that had a very good day, up 12%. MicroStrategy outperformed the 2x leverage Bitcoin ETF, which is BitX, or there's also BITU, I believe. You can double check me on that. Both of those are a 2x leverage on Bitcoin on a daily time frame. So MicroStrategy outperformed that. They did better than a 2x leverage, up 12.1% versus Bitcoin, which was up 5.6%. So very strong performance there. I know we have some MicroStrategy holders here. And Robin's asking, Tom, why the hesitation of Bitcoin being able to break through the upper resistance level? My hesitation, Robin, is I want to see what are the technicals doing when we get there? And the technicals aren't just, the daily RSI. What's the fear and greed index? What else is going on in the world? And the other thing is, when we're stuck inside of a trading range, until we break out of that range, to me, I'm assuming business as usual until there's a reason not to. And I don't day trade or swing trade or any of that stuff. But if you talk to, day traders or swing traders, they would be more likely to buy Bitcoin. I'll go to the other chart because we're in the middle of the range here.
After it breaks out of the range.
Right. They would be more likely, what we just talked about, this breakout and this retest, technical traders, this is when they'd go all in.
Yep.
As a general rule. Obviously, there's a million different ways to trade. So, and that is because they want to see, they want to see a breakout. They want to see confirmation of that breakout. So to me, we've been 5.5 months inside of a range. So until we confirm that we're breaking out of that range, I am hesitant to say we're going to break out. Ultimately, absolutely. And by ultimately, I mean in my opinion, in the next 60 days, we break out of this range. I just hate to play the super short term. So, George, you feel the same way within 60 days.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
But I'm very
I still think we're looking at new highs before the end of the year.
Yeah. So,
well, I mean, it's really a lot of that has to depend on the U.S. election.
Well, we've got quite some time between now and then as well. And then, a couple of months after that. So I do think we'll break out of this, but I hate to play the ultra short term guessing game. I think we could test the top of this range in the next 5 days. So
didn't we have, after the halving last time, didn't we have the exact same thing for 6 months?
Yeah, this is very, very typical price action.
A descending range.
It didn't look identical to this, but it's the say history. If it doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes, and that I feel is the situation we're in. This looks very, very similar to the previous cycles. This period of consolidation that we're having is very similar to previous cycles. The amount that we're off of the bottom, our low from the crypto winter versus where we are today in relation to the halving, is very similar. Now, today we just broke out, so it's actually going to be a little better. But as of yesterday, we were somewhere in the 250 or 260% above the bottom, which is almost exactly where we were this many days after the halving back in the year 2020. So even though it seems like we ran out ahead of things, which we did due to the ETFs, and I will tell you, I bought into this. I thought we were going to be early and ahead on this cycle, right? Because this is the first time in Bitcoin's history we set a new all-time high prior to the halving. And there is absolutely no question that, the US ETFs got approved on January 11th, I think it was. And that caused a massive amount of money to move into Bitcoin. So it accelerated this first move. But now this period of consolidation, this is standard operating procedure. So it wouldn't be a surprise to see it last another 30 days or 45 days. So I don't know how to guess which day we break out of the top of this. So Robin, back to your, why am I hesitant? I'm not hesitant that ultimately we're going to break out of this. I just don't know, which day that's going to be. And it's the difference between short term and long term. So for me, I don't want to say I don't care. If we hit this and then go all the way down and retest this, that's going to be no fun, right? That will be no fun. So I can't say I don't care. Emotionally, that will be bad. But from an investment standpoint, I'm not buying or selling any of these in that time frame anyway. So, unless we break out of the downside and this is the end of the bull market and it's all over, then, it doesn't necessarily matter to me if it's a day from now, 30 days from now, 60 days from now that we get the move, as long as we get the rest of this bull run. So let's just do a quick.
My phone died, so I can't answer your poll, Tom.
Okay, you can answer it verbally.
All right, welcome to Talkin Investing.
Hey, Barry. Thanks for the join, Barry. Do you want to tell him what he won? Tom will tell you what he won in a minute.
Let me just finish. Sorry, I'm typing out a poll. So we'll start like this. 5 more seconds. All right, so quick poll, and then I'll get to Barry. Where will Bitcoin reach at the top of this bull market? So I don't know when the top of the bull market's going to be. My assumption it will be somewhere in the year 2025. You may agree or disagree with that. 75K or less, meaning basically we've already gotten to where we're getting and it's over. 100K, 150K, or 200,000 or more. If 200,000 or more wins in a big way, we'll go up from there. But let's see what you guys think based on these. And I will tell everybody. That's
150 to 200.
150 to 200, George.
That's my number. Yeah.
So we're pretty much on the same page. That's what I'm anticipating. 150 and 200 would be a pleasant surprise to me. I certainly wouldn't be shocked, but that would be a pleasant surprise. And I've seen a lot of very big voices in the crypto world pick numbers even higher than that. But,
177,426.
$177,426. Should we write it down, George?
That's my number.
Writing it down. All right, you guys heard it. That's George's guess. Barry C, member for 23 months. Thank you very much, Barry. Barry said, will HUT end up absorbing Ionic? I will tell you, I've paid little attention to HUT recently. So drop in the comments anybody that has an opinion on that. Robin is saying HUT has no business trying to absorb Ionic. It could put them out of business. Uncontrolled growth is a quick way to bankruptcy. Also, Sour Melon Gaming is saying 250K, Tom. So that's Sour Melon Gaming's price target is 250K. And I don't think that's unreasonable. I'm saying 150, but, that would be the worst bull, my number. And I tend to be conservative, although a lot of people think I'm optimistic. And I try to be realistic. Sometimes I may come off as optimistic, but I'm also, I think, conservative with these estimates. That would be the worst bull market we've ever had for Bitcoin if we got to 150,000. So, there's a prevailing wisdom out there that each bull market gets smaller and smaller. There's diminishing return there. But I don't necessarily believe that that's true. And adoption is at an all-time high, and there's much more adoption ahead of us than behind us, in my opinion. And I don't think it's not even close, in my opinion. So there's lots of more catalysts to come. So I wouldn't be surprised at 200. I wouldn't be surprised at 250. I just, in my mind, from a investment strategy standpoint, I can tell you I'll be taking profits working up to 250. And I'm not going to dump everything, but by 150, I will have done some profit taking. And if we go beyond that, all the better. And I hope we do.
Do you think, Tom, after all that, after the run, do you think it will come back to 50?
50? I mean, that would be a rough crypto. That would be a crypto winter. If we got from 150 down to 50, then it would be another full-blown crypto winter. So I can't rule that out. I just don't think, and I'm gonna blow the whistle on myself before I even say this. I didn't think we were gonna have a crypto winter last time. So I was dead wrong about that. And we did have a crypto winter. And in some ways, it was one of the most brutal crypto winters we've had. And we can list the reasons why that ended up happening. Ultimately, FTX was the kind of the flush out bottom of all that. But there was a series of, disaster after disaster. But in the end, the last cycle, the crypto winter, resembled, all the other previous cycles. So, if you're going off of that, then George, most people would say probably yes, it would get back to 50. I just feel like the amount of money yet to come, let's put it this way, most of the major money managers haven't even started investing in Bitcoin. So there's trillions of dollars on the sideline at this point still. So I do think that, we're going to get, and even if we do have a pullback, and time will tell, I do think we'll have a bear market, right? Especially the more of a blow off top we have. So, if we get to 250, the higher we go, the more chance that we're going to have, a crypto winner, if you will. So, if we get to 150, then I just don't think we're going to drop 70 or 80%. But we'll see. But even if we do, we see price targets, the Kathy Wood and to talk about the ultra bears, Michael Saylor, they're talking about Bitcoin 1 million, 3 million, 20 million, 40 million. And, some of those are 20 or 25 year price targets. But I do think someday Bitcoin will be over $1 million. I don't know what day that is. And I certainly don't think it's in this cycle. And I don't think it's in next cycle. I will tell you, one of the most famous people in the Bitcoin universe, Plan B, his price target for this cycle is $500,000. And his margin of error is on the downside $250,000 and on the upside $1 million. So that's what he's saying. That's his stock to flow model for this cycle in 2024, 2025. Take that with a grain of salt. Take that for whatever it's worth, right? I don't think those numbers are realistic. That's my personal opinion. He did get ahead of himself in the last cycle. He was talking about Bitcoin being at like 146,000 by December of 2021. And, by December of 2021, the bull market was over and 69,000 turned out to be the peak. So, as we always say on this channel, no one data point, no one person, no one anything, none of this is financial advice. And that goes for anybody you're watching or listening to. That's my 2 cents is just, ultimately it's your money. So, you guys know you need to decide how to invest it.
But Tom, if you got a chance this weekend, definitely listen to what Robert Kennedy had to say, the whole thing.
Yeah, I'll definitely listen to that press conference.
That was it's sad. It's a sad state of affairs. I mean, I guess people could say it's his opinion, and maybe he's lying. But if anything that he's saying is true, it's just, wow, it's mind-blowing stuff.
Well, I will listen to that over the weekend. We've had a lot of political stuff in the U.S. here. We just got through the second of the two major parties having their conventions, so we've been inundated with politics, but I definitely will give that one a listen to. Edmund is saying, Tom, don't profit take prior to Q3 of 2025. Number is not as important as timing. So thank you, Edmund. I think that's, I think that makes sense. If you're following the 4-year cycle, as long as something else isn't screaming, that something has changed, that would be a more typical, right? We saw the last 4-year cycle, end in early November, which would be the fourth quarter. And, last time in 2020, the halving was in May. This time it was in very late April. So a very similar time frame. So, if everything works out the way it did last time, then, what Edmund's saying would make a lot of sense. I see somebody saying,
sneak out.
All right, George, have a good night and have a good weekend. Thank you for joining us.
See you, everyone. See you, Tom.
Good night. I'm getting close to the end of my list as well. I see Waffles saying, no way in hell we hit 500K. I assume he means this go around. So if we look at this poll, where will Bitcoin reach at the top of the bull market in 2025? So coming in dead last place is $75,000 or less, meaning essentially we've already peaked. 6% think that that's the case, that was the top and we're done. 100,000 is 34%, 150,000 is 36%, and 200,000 or more is 24%. So 60% of the group thinks we're going to get anywhere from $150,000 or more by the end of this cycle. So I'm right in the middle there. I'm at 150. And again, I certainly won't be surprised at bigger numbers. Yes, to agree with Waffles, I would be very surprised at 500,000. I would be very surprised at 300,000. That would be very surprising to me. But 200, 250, we'll see. There's a lot of people that, are credible voices that feel like that's where we're getting. This comment grabbed my eye. Midway One said, Bitfarms could definitely reach $10 if Bitcoin cooperates. Bitfarms might reach 58 exahash next year. So this is why I'm saying, I think they're doing everything in their power to avoid this hostile takeover attempt by Riot. I'm a long-term believer in Bitfarms. I think operationally they have continued to perform very well. I'll just quickly go. I just want to show a couple of these charts that we didn't get to. Here's Bitfarms in 5th place. So this was July's production. So out of all the Bitcoin mining companies that we follow, these are the top 12. Once you get past this, these numbers drop off of a cliff. So you're going to see Bitfarms was in 5th place at 253 Bitcoin mined. So this is this is one of the bigger Bitcoin miners. Their stock gets treated, in my opinion, it gets treated poorly. I think it's undervalued. That's just, again, not financial advice. That's my opinion. But for a company that's in 5th place, their market cap is in 8th or 9th place. And they have bigger growth plans by far than several of these other companies. Now, every one of these companies has a plan, and they could announce bigger plans going forward. So we'll see. And I think, a lot of these companies are going to succeed and go up, way up from where they are right now. That's the other piece of the puzzle. The Bitcoin miners move has, in the past, happened after the move in Bitcoin. So the big giant runs in the Bitcoin miners, the last time around in particular, it was more like 8 months after the halving. So, we're not, that's when they started to move. And most of them peaked right along with Bitcoin at the very end of the bull run. And, there was 20Xs, 30Xs, 40Xs, 50Xs. I'm not expecting those. We're at much higher numbers. There's been massive amounts of dilution, but I do think there's 3Xs, 4Xs, 5Xs out there to be had in the Bitcoin miners, maybe more than that. Who knows? And long-term, maybe more than that. Having said that, I dropped 7 of them off the list. Some of these may fail or, may go stagnant and not get where they're going. Robbie Rose, thank you very much for the super chat. Robbie Rose said, appreciate everyone's input. Hodl, folks. So thank you, Robbie Rose. Yeah, if all goes as planned, this should still be very early, right? We're still stuck in that sideways trading range after the halving. So the last thing I wanted to show you guys, this is the last 8 trading days. So this is from last Tuesday to this Friday. It says Tuesday, but it's really from last Tuesday to this Friday. That's 8 trading days. So remember I said TerraWolf was the lagger today on the day today? That is because in the last 8 days, even lagging today, they're up 49% in the last 8 trading days. So TerraWolf has been on fire. They have been the leader in the last 8 days. They're also the leader year to date. We'll look at that in a minute. But you can see, this was a good week and a half to own Bitcoin miners. Other than, of the 12 we follow, there was 1 in the red. BitDeer was in the red. I did buy some options. I think I mentioned, and again, when I play in options, I play in very small dollars, but I bought some options on BitDeer. They did some convertible debt. They got beat up for it, and they haven't bounced back yet. I think they're due for a bounce. Let's just see what they did today. BitDeer was up 7.8%, so just under 8%. So a nice day today. I think they're due for a bounce. We'll see what happens. Cypher's lagging behind. Bitcoin's up 5% in the last 8 days. We see all of that was today. It's up 5.5% today. So prior to today, it was actually down. But look at these moves. Hive up 28%, Bit Digital up 27%, Core Scientific 27%, Marathon 21%. I mean, these are good. These are very good numbers. 10 of the 12 Bitcoin miners outperformed Bitcoin in the last 8 days, and 5 of them 4x'd or more. 4x'd, 5x'd Bitcoin. TerraWolf 10x'd Bitcoin. Now, in small windows, stuff like that could happen. And then if we look at year to date, TerraWolf's up 100. Bitcoin's up 51% year to date. So with all of this sideways action, all things considered, this has still been a really good year for Bitcoin, up 51% as of the end of the day today, not including the pump we've had after the market closed. TerraWolf up 105%, Core Scientific up 94%. The only 2 other Bitcoin miners in the green, Iron's up 21% and CleanSpark's up 14%. Everybody else is in the red. You'll see a few getting ready to flip into the green. And Riot in absolute, utter dead last place. So I'm not ridiculing them. I have a position in Riot. I feel like they're going to get where they're going, but so far for 8 months this year, I've been wrong. So, you're only wrong if you're wrong at the end. So I'm holding this position. I still think it's going to get where it's going. Not financial advice, but so far this year, you can see Riot is the lagger. They are very stubbornly still down 45%. And Robin saying, I think Riot knew about Bitfarms buying Stronghold. Riot wants them both. So that could be, if Bitfarms with that would be a much, much bigger company. And for Riot, from Riot's perspective, picking up $56 million or even $100 million of liabilities, not a big deal for Riot. They're a much bigger company. If we check their market cap, let me go here. They're at $2.5 billion. And that's with the massive underperformance. They're down 45% on the year, and they're still a $2.5 billion market cap. Their balance sheet is very strong. So to absorb all of that wouldn't be as big of a deal. So maybe you're right. I don't know. we'll see. I don't know. I remain extremely skeptical that Riot's going to end up owning Bitfarms, but I'm just guessing like everybody else. And Midway saying if Bitcoin reaches 150,000, something like $15 to $25 seems possible for Bitfarms. So that would be a grand slam home run. And that's why I'm saying, if you're a Bitfarms shareholder, the last thing you want to see is Riot pick them up for $2 or $3 or even $4, right? Even though $4 would be a big win from here, you're hoping for bigger, better things in all likelihood if you're a Bitfarms shareholder. So, we'll see what happens. We'll end this poll. Take a look at where Bitcoin is at. So it's been holding strong. It ran up to around 64,800. We're at 64,400. So from the end of the trading day yesterday to after hours here today, Bitcoin's up almost 7%. So this was a massive run. I think it's a breakout. I would not get too nervous if at some point during the weekend we pull back a little. Now, if we give all of this back, then, that would be disappointing. If we lose, in other words, there's a couple of lines of support. If we lose this line of support at around 63, if we lose this at around 62 and break back down here, then if I go over here, in other words, if we get back into this, if we lose all of this momentum, then I suppose this was a gigantic fake out. But I feel like it's more likely this was not a fake out. This feels like, at least in the short term, this feels like the next step on the push to retest the top of this trading range. That is my personal opinion. We did a poll. I think 86% of the people agreed that we were on our way to retest the top of this, which is somewhere in the $68,000 or $69,000 range. So I'll leave you with, if you guys could do us a favor, if you have not yet, smash the like button. It does help the stream out. It helps the channel out. And hopefully you guys did enjoy this content. More importantly, hopefully everybody made some money today. This should have been a good day if you're holding Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. Today was a nice day. Hopefully a sign of things to come. So I'll leave you guys with that. Everybody, please have a great weekend. Special thanks to all the members. Thank you so much to all the subscribers. Everybody who smashed the like button. Once again, enjoy your weekend. For the members, we will see you Tuesday after the market closes for the members only live stream. Have a fantastic weekend, everybody. Thanks again.